Good morning, everyone. This is Sudhir. I'll be training on this Docker and Kubernetes. And I was working on this DevOps engineering part and this orchestration, like containerization platform, where we used to deploy applications and all. That's how we manage, and we do some testings and security related things also we do in our organization actually. So let us try to discuss what is our syllabus of this entire course and what are the topics that we are going to discuss and how depth we are going into that particular topics. Okay, this is the syllabus. So first I just want to show the syllabus, like what would be and for whom this will be get covered. Okay, so the persons who are joining to this particular course, maybe from the down the line, maybe after 1 week or 2 weeks, the course might be started, right? So there might be people who are joining from different platform. Some people could be from operations, some people can be from development, some people can be from middleware or something, right? Some manual testing and all. So irrespective of their field from where they are coming with, if you like, current technology requires everybody, right? In all, someone who has experience in all the platforms. It's not about only a development, right? So some people needs experience on the operations as well, or on the testing as well. Coming to the syllabus, people need to have any prerequisite knowledge and all? I would say if you have some experience on Linux operating system, that would be good. Or else, do we need any in-depth? Let's say you might have some point of experience in this Linux operating system, that is also good. Okay. If not, I'll be not teaching the complete administrative part, but whatever is needed for you to go ahead with the Docker or Kubernetes cluster deployment on Linux operating system, those topics I will be covering in Linux. Means it is from scratch. Scratch in the sense, let's say we will be creating a VM virtual machine, we will be installing the operating system, and we will manage the networking on the top VM, and we do the necessary actions like installing the packages, modifying the configuration files, managing the services, okay, well, stopping or starting or enabling the services. All these things I will be showing you from scratch. Okay, which is like a person who doesn't even have a knowledge on Linux operating system, he can start with the these basics what I'm getting started with. Okay, so in the first class itself, when we are getting started, I'll be showing you what is a how to launch a VM. Okay, VM in the sense can be in a GCP account, or I'll be showing in my Oracle VirtualBox. Okay, so this is how it looks. Let me show you one sample. So this is how it looks, right? So this is one of the tool which we have in order to create virtual machines on my base operating system, right? See, I have Windows operating system, but I want to practice on Linux operating system. Okay, so the person who wants to do that, obviously he will install some hypervisor, right? It is a hypervisor. I'll just talk about this, what is a hypervisor and all. So this Oracle VirtualBox is a hypervisor, and it is trying to create a virtual machines using that particular software, right? So that's the reason you are able to run it. So you will create how many virtual machines you want, and you will run your what do you say, applications. Like this is, you can see my Kubernetes cluster. Okay, and this is my Docker host machine actually. This is like practice, whatever, without disturbing my base operating system. Using this particular hypervisor, I'm trying to create some virtual machines and install whatever operating system I want, and then I will practice whether it is a Docker, Kubernetes, or any other thing which I want to. Okay, so the person who doesn't have this physical operating system, like base operating system, doesn't have the minimum hardware like 8 GB of RAM, 4 core CPU, something like that. No need to worry about it. Think planning about purchasing or something like that. It's not needed. You can directly use a free account like GCP account. Okay, so GCP account in the sense it looks like this. Let me show you. First, I will show you what are the accounts, like what we can do, so that you'll get some confidence on it. Let me log into that account actually. Um, So you can see now, this is my Google Cloud account. Okay. So here, let's say, what is the benefit do I get is nothing but here they will give you me with your Gmail account, you can log in. they will give you need to enter your credit card or debit card details. They will deduct 1 rupee for verification of the card actually. Okay, they don't deduct more than that, and they will revert back actually maybe after 2 days of verification. What they will give you, they will give you a credit of 22,000. Let me show you it actually. There is a billing, yeah. So this account will be created for 3 months, and within the 3 months you have to utilize this 20,000. Now I have 20,000. They gave me 21,776 rupees. Okay, but I have used 20,000. Okay, this is for 3 months actually. Okay, within 3 months this account will get expired. Which one comes first? That, like, your account will get locked actually. Okay, now you can say nothing has been built. Now you can see here I'm using compute engine. Here I created two instances. Instance is nothing but virtual machine. Technically in cloud they call it as instance. Okay, now you can see these two instances I'm using for Kubernetes actually. Okay,
Can
this
you
is the
please
way.
zoom it? Yeah?
Sorry,
Can you please zoom it? We are not able to see anything.
this one. um this is the max actually, but okay, let me try to zoom like this. So this is the account where I use it actually, because the benefit of this is nothing but tomorrow if my virtual machines are crashed, or tomorrow if I changing my network and all, if I using mobile network and all, the problem is in the virtual machines, if you use certain network, it doesn't work when you change your network or something, because you will be using a bridge network for our practice. Okay, so that is binded to only a specific Wi-Fi. If another Wi-Fi doesn't have this particular same kind of subnet. Okay, I will tell you that a subnet and all in the networking concept. When you don't have the same subnet, obviously you need to modify the networking. So if you modify the IP address, obviously your Kubernetes will go down. Okay, so instead of taking that headache, you can create your virtual machines on this GCP account, and you can start at any point of time, and you can stop it at any point of time and practice. Okay, so this is the simple way to do it. No need to worry about your physical hardware. You don't have a sufficient amount of physical hardware to practice and all. It's no need to worry. You can just create an account and you can just practice. Okay. So these are the few things which we do. Okay. Which we need to do when we want to practice our entire course related tools and all. Okay. So coming to the point, let me just a second. Yeah. So what is our syllabus? So in the syllabus, that is a prerequisites. So Linux operating system and networking part. So coming to the next topic is networking part. So what we do discuss in the networking part, in the sense, you have to know what is IP address, IPv4, what is the classes we have, class A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, so what is a class A, B, C? What is a subnet? What is CIDR? What is a gateway? What is a broadcast? What is a router? What is a switch? So these are the basics which are really needed for a person to handle, or in order to work on this kind of environments actually. Okay, like when you're working on containerization tools, or when you're working on any other tool as an administrative part, you have to be strong enough in this networking as well. I'm not talking about Cisco level routing and all. I'm talking about the networking from the operations perspective. Okay, so these are the things which are needed. So that's the reason we had a separate topic. After the Linux operating system, Linux administration, we are going to discuss about networking part. Okay, so these are the two minimum required things for us to start with any tool, whether it is a Docker or Kubernetes. These are mandatory. Like mandatory in the sense Linux operating system and this networking part. If a person already has some background on this, that's well and good. If I need to consider, I need to take into account of everyone, right? If one person doesn't have knowledge on this, I need to start from there. If everybody has in my what do we say, the people who are joined in this particular course has, everybody has some knowledge on Linux operating system, then I could skip it actually if it is not needed. Linux operating system, network, definitely I have to teach, and then I will be going to the Docker, Kubernetes, Helm charts, and then Terraform, and then security. Okay, security is a new topic which I have added from this particular batch actually. I'll tell you what is that security and all. Okay. Any questions for the newcomers or someone who doesn't have Linux operating system background?
Yeah, actually, I have a knowledge in Linux and networking.
You're working on Windows or any other operating system?
I'm basically from SAP background, but I mean, so we have the some
SAP
kernel
basis
version.
or SAP basis they will use Ubuntu, right? If I'm not
No,
wrong.
SAP
Correct me.
not based BW.
Okay, okay.
DevOps,
Got it.
we are required little bits knowledge on it, and that's it.
Okay. Okay. So any other persons actually?
Hi, Sudhir. Will you be covering the ingress also in Kubernetes?
Let me talk about when we come across this Kubernetes. Okay, you're talking about ingress controller, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Without that, we cannot write. So that is the main part. How will you expose your
yeah,
application? That if I don't teach that, there is no value added, right? So I'll tell you what are the topics we
Yeah.
are going to cover. I'm talking about the Linux operating system and networking. Do you feel that do you need anything else or this is sufficient or if you already have some background, so that's what I'm just trying to discuss. Yeah. No, right? Okay. So once these are done, we will be starting with Docker tools. So Docker tools, you might be hearing something like Kubernetes has deprecated this Docker and all. So did anyone heard about it?
Yes.
Sorry?
What does it mean? Any investigation that you have done from your end? Why is that so?
I think Kubernetes stopped its support.
Support fine. It doesn't mean that we cannot use it. We can use it, but they don't support the integration part. If something is failing or something is there is some bug fix and all, they don't support it actually. What could be the reason? Any idea from your end? Did you ever
Just
thought like why could be the reason?
Kubernetes
Uh,
just requires a container. That's all. Anything can be done, not particularly Docker, right?
So the problem with the Docker is if you are using for Kubernetes, I'm not talking about Docker itself is in the native way. Okay, for Kubernetes, in order to launch a container, they need some container runtime interface. Okay, so in order to launch a container, if you are using Docker, this Kubernetes will pass information to the Docker CLI. From the Docker CLI, it will go to the Docker daemon. From the daemon, it will talk to the even your Docker itself is using a container itself, container tool in the backend. If you try to investigate and try to understand the underlying concept of Docker, Docker is dependent on Linux features and the container D, container D runtime interface actually. Okay, so even if your Docker is relying on that particular container D, why can't Kubernetes directly talk to the container D? So because of this, the latency will be less and it will be much faster, and the application critical applications or something, it will be much faster to communicate and create it actually. So that's the intention. They have deprecated the Docker from Kubernetes. That will be completely removed. Now you'll get a deprecated warning, but from 1.22 of Kubernetes version, you will see this Docker is no longer supported. Okay, it doesn't mean that Docker tool itself is not needed for us. We need it. Why? Because for building the images from scratch, Docker is the best tool right now we have. Okay, there is no other tool which can replace this designing, like creating our own images from scratch. Okay, that's the reason. So obviously we need some knowledge on the Docker. So it doesn't mean that if Kubernetes is not using it, we cannot use it. For CI/CD operations, we need. Okay, in so many places we can use a Docker as a standalone. Okay, so that is the best tool we have. Only for Kubernetes it is deprecated because it has some latency. Why? Because it should pass from so many chains to reach to the destination. So then they thought like, why can't we reach to the destination directly and try to communicate and pass the information? That's how they have removed this Docker as a mediator between them. That would obviously, right, if you try to think in that perspective, what they told is correct, right? I don't want the latency when I'm trying to run some large applications on my cluster. I don't want the latency to be happen. If there is no latency, applications will be deployed much faster and much quicker actually. Okay, so that is a simple introduction why they have deprecated. Okay, Now, let's go to the Docker. So in Docker, we have so many tools, right? So Docker Engine, if you try to investigate on that, we have Docker Engine, Docker Machine, Docker Compose, and then Docker Swarm. These are the four major tools which we have in Docker. First and foremost tool which you have to learn is nothing but, and concentrate your 100% on the tool, is nothing but Docker Engine. What is Docker Engine? Docker Engine is a tool which tries to create a container for us. Simple. Okay. That is a major tool which tries to create a container for us. So do we have, let's say, before Docker came into picture, do we have any other tool for creating containers? Yes, we have. We have LXC, LXD, and we have other tools as well. I don't recall it, but yeah, LXC, LXD, we have other container tools like Runc and all to create a containers. But those particular tools have some limitations actually. We don't have a registry, we don't have some particular thing. There are so many complex things, or we have to integrate so many other things into our platform to use the complete Docker container feature actually. So that's the reason when Docker came into picture, that simplified the job actually. What Docker has done intelligently is nothing but it has used the underlying features which are already available in Linux operating system, and it adopted it, and it has created a platform to utilize that particular running the applications in the container level. Okay, so we can manage networking, we can manage image build, we can migrate our containers, we can migrate our images, we can have a storage, okay, volumes, we can build the images, as I told you before, we can have a registry. So many things can be done in the Docker engine. Okay, so that's the reason Docker became more popular than any other tool for managing your applications on the container level. Okay, so we have to discuss so many tools. First of all, let us try to discuss the history of what are the tools that we have with the containerization, and then I will be showing you how to install this Docker engine. In the Docker engine, we have two types of versions actually. One is Community Edition and one is Enterprise Edition. Enterprise Edition is a licensed one, and then you will get some support too from the Docker team, whereas Community Edition is a free of cost. Okay, obviously when you are working on product based companies and all, or some other companies, clients will try to prefer to use most like open source, okay, standard tools but open source. Okay, so that's how you have to be exposed to the open source tools as well. Okay, like Community Edition is an open source where it doesn't need any license. We generally use a public license in order to install that particular package. Okay, so that's how we do. So all the topics whatever I try to discuss or whatever I show you, either I will be showing in my local virtual box or I will be showing in your GCP account. So no need to worry how to create. I'll be showing you from scratch. All the videos will be uploaded to the portal, what management will be giving you for individually, and you can watch the videos on daily basis. Okay, daily it will be like 1 hour. That is more than sufficient actually. Sufficient for us to discuss or try to complete the topics. Okay, it will take 45 days excluding your Saturdays and Sundays. Take it as 2 months. Okay, including Saturdays and Sundays. So take it as 2 months. So we have 2 months time to complete this particular course. Some people might ask why 2 months, in the sense 1 hour daily. If you try to see 60 days, right? Obviously, or not 60 days. Take it as 45 days. Okay, 45 days, 45 hours, which is sometimes may not also sufficient actually. It depends. Why? Because we have a lot of syllabus in Kubernetes actually. Okay, forget about Docker. We have so many concepts or features present in Kubernetes. You have to have some grip on that particular concepts. So to cover it practically and theoretically, it will take some time. Okay, so that's the reason I gave a grace period like 45 days, but it may vary like 5 days here and there actually, maybe less or more than the 45 days. Okay, so this is how we are planning to complete the course actually. Okay, it's not in hurry. We will go slow. Everybody has to understand. But the only thing support is needed is nothing but whatever the task I gave you, you have to complete on your weekends, because most of the people might be working in IT, right? So no one will be free. So obviously in weekdays you don't get any time to practice. Sometimes maybe do the task. What I suggest is, even though if you don't get some time on weekdays, try to practice, make your time at least for this particular course. make your time on weekdays at least for half an hour and try to practice whatever I told on that particular day and try to complete it. Okay. Task and all you can complete on weekdays. Okay. Only just you need to struggle for 2 months actually, not more than that, right? Why I'm asking this is because some people, I'm not exaggerating actually, after 2 months they will start practicing. Okay. So when you start there, you will see some bunch of syllabus. Okay. You need to cover Docker tools and you need to cover Kubernetes tools as well, Helm charts and Terraform. Imagine like how many concepts you will have. So obviously you will get collapsed, right? So it's like, yeah, it's a burden actually. It's not that easy to complete. Again, you'll have some questions. Sometimes you don't get answer immediately. You have to wait until that got answered. Again, you will delay from your end. So it should not happen actually. So what I suggest is like practice on a daily basis. On weekend, take more time and try to complete the task whatever I've given. That will help you in the real time. Okay. And don't think that every institute or every trainer can replicate the real-time project. It's highly impossible, or it is mission impossible actually. Okay, it needs a lot of infrastructure and to replicate. So what I will be showing you is like what it looks by using this tool, what is the real-time task that we can do. I will show you practically into it. CI/CD like Jenkins I will show you. Okay, GitHub automation, Jenkins automation, everything I will show you how to run it in container level. I will show you in Docker as well as Kubernetes as well. Okay, don't worry about this Jenkins CI/CD operations and all. I will be covering in this syllabus itself. Okay, I'll be tell you what is Jenkins, and then I will be covering how to automate that particular process. Okay, and then in the Docker engine, I'll be covering with installation. You can see here the topics over here. Okay, so architecture. Okay, how many components we have in Docker engine, like Docker daemon, Docker client, Docker registry, Docker object. Okay, if you try to look at this, let me. So first of all, why containers? That's the most thing, right, which we have to understand. Containers are, if does anyone have some idea what is a container? Any definition, or do you have some idea? Please, I just want to hear something.
This is
Any
nothing but
investigation that you have done
storage.
before joining the course, right? You might have did some investigation.
It's like any storage.
Container
Yes,
is,
storage.
we have already a
Storage.
storage concept, right? Why container is called a storage then?
Container is a
Uh,
small instance of server. So all the things which are required to run an
Yeah,
application
somewhere.
that combines in a
Yeah.
container.
Okay. So your application can be called it as a process,
Yes.
right? So
And as compared
containers
to
are nothing
other server, it boots up quickly.
much faster, right? Compared to any other. Why?
Yes.
What could be the reason? So why it could boot much faster compared
Because
to your virtual machines or
image
bare
size
metal?
and the binaries which are combined with this are less as compared to the other major OS.
Okay. So let me come there. Yeah, what you said is like almost all the points are near to the this topic actually. Okay. So thank you for that. So container is a simple process actually. Why it is called just a process? Let me explain this. Let's say I gave you some bare metal server or a virtual machine. You install some web application like Nginx. Now when you deploy some Nginx and when you're trying to run that Nginx service, what it will do in the background, it will create a process ID. Forget about the child process. I'm talking about the parent process ID. So it will create a process, and that process will be handled by your CPU, and that will be running in the background. Your application will be running in the background, right? And tomorrow if you try to install some database on the same machine, so your Nginx application is running as one process ID and your database will be running as another process ID. Both are running on the same machine, they can communicate with each other and they can share the data, everything can happen. Okay, but the problem with the virtual machines is when you try to create a virtual machine has its own operating system, and underlying it will have some hypervisor to create a virtual machine. So what is hypervisor then? Hypervisor, we have two types. type 1 hypervisor and type 2 hypervisor. Type 1 hypervisor is nothing but hardware hypervisor, and type 2 hypervisor is nothing but software hypervisor. What is this hardware and software? Hardware hypervisor in the sense, the hypervisor which runs on the machine doesn't have any operating system. The hypervisor itself looks like an operating system. Okay, best example is VMware ESXi. You might have heard about it, right? VMware ESXi, Hyper-V for Windows, and Zen for Linux and all. Okay, so these are like an operating systems. When I gave you some bare metal server, no need to install any operating system. You will directly install your VMware ESXi or Hyper-V for Windows or Zen for Linux. Okay, and then we will create a virtual machines. Okay, that is called as hardware hypervisor. So type 2 hypervisor is nothing but software. Best example, I told you my Oracle VirtualBox, right? Best example is that. Okay, so to run, for example, this Oracle VirtualBox needs an operating system. Okay, without running an operating system, whether it is a Windows or Linux or where you install this Oracle VirtualBox, whatever the platform it is, whether it is a Windows or a Mac or Linux operating system, you need an operating system running inside. Without having operating system, you cannot install this Oracle VirtualBox or VMware Workstation or any other tool, Vagrant or any other tool, right? Without having an operating system, you cannot install them. These hypervisors are called as software hypervisors. Okay, so these are the type 1 and type 2 hypervisors. Okay, any questions? Do you have any objections in my answer, or do you have any other idea? No, right? You agree with me, right? So type 1 is nothing but hardware, which is nothing but a hypervisor which will be installed directly on your host hardware, actually a bare metal server or whatever it is. Okay, whereas a type 2 hypervisor is a software hypervisor which needs an operating system. Without having operating system, you cannot install this hypervisor. Okay, that's a thing which you have to remember. Now, through whatever the medium, through whatever hypervisor you try to create a virtual machines, okay, you will create a virtual machine and you will install an operating system on top of it. Okay, the operating system which is running on a virtual machine is called as guest operating system. The operating system which is running on the bare metal server or a base machine is called as host operating system. Okay, now to run an operating system, what is an operating system exactly? Operating system is a mediator between your user and user interface like CLI or a graphical user interface or an application browser, whatever it is. You will try to communicate to your operating system. Operating system will talk to the hardware, right? So who will talk to the hardware? Kernel. In Linux operating system, we have the heart of operating system is nothing but kernel, right? What kernel does? Kernel will try to compile your human readable language into machine level language. What is machine level language? Ones and zeros, binary language, right? As a human being, I cannot understand what is a zeros and ones combination. I can understand only English or my mother tongue. That's it, right? I cannot understand nothing else about binary language, but I'm not in a position to learn as well. Okay, so I want to use operating system, but that is not a feasible way to understand the binaries and binaries like zeros and ones. So what operating system does, it will take your human readable language and this kernel will try to convert that human readable language into binary language, actually ones and zeros. Okay, so this is the purpose of your kernel. Not only that, to run some multiple process in the backend, okay, multi-threading, multi-processing, everything will be done in your kernel, right? So these are the advantages. Now, whenever you create a virtual machine, in virtual machine we have operating system. So in order to run an operating system, we need so many services to be running in the background. When you try to boot your operating system, it will take some time, right? In that time, what will happen? It will run all the necessary services or the services in the background in order to run your operating system, right? It will start those services first and then your operating system will show you the login prompt, right? So when you want to run an application on top of this virtual machine, the resources which are allocated to this particular virtual machine, like let's say I allocated 4 GB of RAM, 2 core CPU and 50 GB of hard disk, something like that. Okay, now your operating system has occupied some amount of RAM, some amount of CPU already, right? And some amount of space as well. Now, only the rest of the CPU and CPU memory and the storage which is left, that is used by your application, which is not a feasible solution for me. Whatever the resource is allocated to me, I want to utilize the entire resource, but that is not happening in this virtual machines or a bare metal server. Okay, so operating system will utilize some amount of, what do you say, service to run the services. It will utilize some CPU and some memory and some storage as well. So that is like bothering my application, because I don't have a sufficient amount of resource to to run this particular application. Okay, again you need to request, you need to shut down this particular virtual machine, again you have to increase the resource, and again you need to run your application, right? So that is really a headache for me. So to overcome this, what container does, container doesn't have any operating system. Okay, that is the first thing you have to remember. Not operating system in the sense, a container doesn't have any kernel. Okay, it will have only the operating system related libraries and binaries. What are these libraries and binaries? In order to talk to the hardware, right? I told you, right? If you want to talk to the RAM, if you want to talk to the CPU, if you want to talk to any other device, hardware device, those libraries and binaries are programmed in such a way that it will take your input and that will be converted into binary language, and then it will get a response, and that will be given to you on a terminal or on the browser or on the whatever the medium it is. Okay, so that's how it will do. So those all the libraries and binaries are different for each and every operating system. For in Windows it will have a different libraries and binaries, for Linux it will have a different binaries and libraries, and for Ubuntu, in Linux only we have Ubuntu, Red Hat, Linux Mint, we have CentOS, we have so many flavors, right? Every flavor has its own libraries and binaries. So it will have those libraries and binaries in the container. Okay, only those. It doesn't have any kernel. So because of that, what is advantage? So there is no operating system running in my container. So there are no services running in the background to run to have for that particular operating system. So whatever the application is trying to run on this particular container, the entire resource is allocated to this particular container will be used by your application. Okay, so there is no other service running in the container which will try to utilize the resource. So your container is nothing but one process. How will you run one particular application in the virtual machine or a bare metal, right? That particular process now you have isolated. Okay, that isolation is called as namespaces. I will not go in depth about namespaces right now. It is nothing but segregating. Let's say you have one particular, you are staying in house, right? Your house is divided into partitions like kitchen room, bedroom, children's room, hall, puja room, and all, right? How this is segregated based on the our needs. So similar to that, now your containers are divided actually, and these are isolated. Isolated in the sense every container has its own namespace. Means these are isolated. How your kitchen is separated from your hall, right? So similar to that, using the concept called namespaces, we have different types of namespaces. Your containers are segregated with each other, which means that one container which is running with some particular process and all cannot see the details of another container. These are isolated actually with each other using the concept called namespaces. Okay, so that is advantage where your container, whatever the resource is allocated, it will try to run only that particular that resource will be entirely used by your container. Okay, and these resources are not fixed actually. Now the container will try to use how much amount of RAM and CPU is needed. Only that amount will be requested to the Docker. Only that amount will be allocated to your container. Tomorrow, if I want to need more, if I need more RAM and CPU, it will increase dynamically, and it will decrease dynamically when it is not needed. So this is the best feature, right? What we have. That thing will not happen in virtual machines. In virtual machine, there is no concept like, can we increase the RAM and CPU dynamically? Change it? No, right? We cannot do that actually. Okay, but these things can be done automatically in your containers. Okay, so these are the major advantages why we are going into the containers level to run your applications. Okay, simple. It's not too rocket science. Instead of running your all applications in a single virtual machine, now we are using a concept called containers, and we are trying to segregate all the processes which are running in the machine. We are trying to segregate them using the concept called namespaces. Okay, that's it. That is called as containers. Okay, any questions in this? Okay, so I hope there are no questions. Yeah, I will go to the next topic. So this is how the containers, that is the purpose of it actually. So Docker has adopted that particular features, and they have designed or they've implemented so many features, and they have released into the market with they are developed in Go language actually. Okay, so if you are familiar with Go language, you can contribute to that particular development at all. And now these containers, Docker containers, are nothing but the containers which are created through a Docker tool. Simple. Okay, Docker containers are nothing but the containers which are created through Docker tool is nothing but Docker containers. So if someone asks you like what is a container, simple definition as a container is a, either you can answer this or that. It is another process running on your machine, that is to isolate from other applications. The applications which are running on the machine are isolated with each other using the concept called namespaces. That is called as container. If someone asks you if is a container having operating system, no, it will have only the libraries and binaries of that particular operating system. I can create a Ubuntu container, I can create a CentOS container, I can create any other Red Hat container or any other container actually. But the only problem is on the Linux operating system, if you try to install Docker and if you try to create a Windows container, it is not possible. Okay, if your base operating system is Linux and if you are trying to create a Windows container, it is not possible. But on Windows operating system, if you try to install Docker and if you try to create a Linux container, it is possible. Okay, that's one thing you have to remember. Some people might ask in interview. Okay, so you have to be careful on that. So Docker has so many things. So this is how it works actually. This is how it looks. When you install Docker on the machine, there are three parts: client, host, and registry. Registry is the location where all the images will be stored actually. It is a public repository where everybody can download the images. Okay. Now your client means you will execute some CLI command, right? Those CLI commands will talk to the Docker host machine and it will verify whether the image is already there in my system or not. If it is not there, it will download that image and then it will create a container for us. Okay, that's how it does. So we will go in depth how it works and all. So this is one of the interview question. They will ask you like, while creating a container, what are the steps it will undergo? Okay, so those steps I will be explaining you in the session. So don't worry too much about this particular slide. Okay, this slides I will be sharing you once this particular demo is done. You can go through these particular slides. Okay, so this is the in-depth concept. I just want to explain after the course has been started because I don't want to go now itself. But to be simplified, this is one of the interview question which people might ask you like, when the input has been received by your Docker daemon, what it will do in the background, in depth, what it will do in the background to create a container for you. Okay, so then you will understand that Docker is relying on container D. You can see here my cursor. Okay, so it is using container D to create a containers actually. Okay, that's it. So this is how pictorially it will looks like this, and this diagram it's not needed now. So these are the things which we'll have. Okay, so these are the CLI commands which mostly we discuss, which we frequently use in the production or any other like testing servers that we use. Okay, so we will go in depth. This is about networking. This is all about the storage, and this is all about networking concept in Docker. So you have to understand what is bind mount, volume mount, and tempfs. These are related to volumes. These are related to storage actually. Okay, so these are the three topics which are major topics. You have to understand what is bind mount, what is tempfs mount, and what is volume mount. Okay, after this is done, I'll be talking about networking. In the networking, you have to understand what is host network, what is bridge network, what is null network. So these are the things which you have to understand. Those concepts I will try to explain. So this is how it looks pictorially. I will try to explain this in the class. Okay, just I want to show you that we will be covering networking concept as well. Okay, so as I discussed, right, in the Docker we have so many concepts. Docker engine, that is what I have discussed till now. Docker compose, Docker machine, and then we have Docker Swarm. So what is this Docker machine? Docker machine is something where, let's say I have Oracle Virtual Box, for example. Okay, I want to use some tool like a Docker machine, and I want to spin up a virtual machine with a Docker installed. Okay, so if I want to do that, Docker itself is providing a tool where you can do that actually. Okay, so that is called as Docker machine, which means that it will try to create a virtual machine or any other machine with a Docker installed. Okay, technically we use Vagrant, right? If you have gone training with a DevOps tool and all, or any other tool, you might have heard about Vagrant. Okay, using Vagrant, how we spin up a virtual machine on a AWS or in your local system and all. So similar to that, Docker machine will do it. Docker has created their own tool called Docker machine, where it will try to contact your provider and then it will create a virtual machine with Docker installed. Okay, it's kind of a bootstrapping actually. It is not needed in productions or in your practice sessions. We don't use it actually. So don't concentrate too much on this. It is a zero knowledge needed on this. Okay, zero knowledge, or when you have some time, free time, then you can go through this particular tool. So this tool is not at all needed for us. Docker engine is a main tool for us to create a containers. Okay, what is Docker Compose? Some people might have heard about a concept called, technical term called orchestration. Does anyone know what is orchestration? Any guess?
Scaling up of the container according to the requirement.
Yeah. Scaling, sorry, come again, I missed it.
I'm telling increase the number of the container to meet the requirement load what a particular application is getting.
Rate. No, that is called a scaling rate, scaling and scale out. I'm talking about orchestration.
Well, to
Managing
according to
containers.
me,
Yeah, one by one.
it is a
Please, yeah.
distributed environment. It is kind of a distributed when you want to establish a distributed environment and to like to connect to multiple containers, then orchestration come into picture.
Okay, yeah. Any other answers, please?
Management of the container.
Managing containers, I can do it from CLI, right? Why Docker Compose is, see, I already have a Docker engine. I can create a containers, I can create a storage, networking, everything I can do it from CLI. Why I need a Compose then?
In Compose,
So
we
if you want
can
to
spin up
provide,
multiple container at once.
Sorry, come again. I missed it. Multiple?
In multiple container in one Compose file, and the internal network it create by Compose itself.
Some points are actually closer. Yeah. What you said is correct, but yeah, a little bit here and there. That's it. Yeah, Abhinav, you are saying something?
Yeah, I just learned by myself. That's why maybe I'm not
Yeah, I
in a
understand.
proper
That's okay.
technical.
But anyway, it's almost
knowledge.
near actually. Yeah, it's almost near. Yeah. Abhinav, any answer? No, right? Okay. Let me explain. Orchestration is something where, let's say, in the real world, you need to store. Let's say I want to create some particular resource on Docker, right? Resource in the sense your container. For example, container is one of the resource which I want to create on my Docker engine, right? So when I want to create, I need to some CLI options. I need to pass so many options, whatever is needed to run my application properly on a Docker. Now, everybody cannot do this, right? Everybody cannot remember these options for a longer period, or even I cannot remember somewhere until unless it is stored somewhere like a notepad or somewhere to remember this particular concept. Now, similarly, let's say one container is fine. I want to create multiple containers then. Is it possible? I need to create one container. I need to wait until that particular command is done. Then I need to create another container. Then I need to create another container, one after the other in a serial order. Okay, that is the second thing. And third most thing is nothing but when you are doing some CI/CD operations, when you want to launch a container, you cannot give a CLI command, right? Because so many things you need to pass as an argument. I don't want to take that headache. Okay. I need some particular thing which would happen in CI/CD operation, which will simplify my job. It has to be, I want to create something that should be something should be written in a file. Okay. So these are the three things which are really needed in real time for us to go through the orchestration. So what is orchestration in the sense? Whatever you want to create a resource on the Docker, a resource can be anything, a container or a volume or a networking or a storage, whatever it is, those resources, whatever you're trying to create, you will be writing in a file. That file is nothing but an orchestration. That file we will be giving as an input. That orchestration tool will take that file as an input, and that will be converted into a CLI, and that will be given to your Docker engine. Okay, Docker host, technically we call it as. Okay, so this mechanism is called as orchestration. Orchestration in the sense, writing what you want to create in a file, and that is given as an input to your engine. Okay, so that is called as orchestration. Simple. Okay, all the people who are answered is like, it's the same actually. What I told is correct, little bit sentence formation, that's it. Okay, so that is called as orchestration. Now the Docker Compose is nothing but you will be writing a YAML file or a JSON file. I will tell you, before that we have to discuss about what is YAML and what is a JSON. I will explain that about that. It is not a scripting language, it is just a way of writing your, see, YAML and JSON is nothing but a key value pair store. Okay, I want to store some particular variable and value of that particular variable in a file. So that is stored in a proper format so that some particular tool can understand that particular format. That is called as a JSON format or a YAML format. Okay, so we have to understand how to write it. It is a simple key value pairs. We are trying to store it in a file. Okay, so that's how it is. So Compose, we have to understand YAML format and a JSON format. I will explain before that Compose tool was discussed. I will try to explain what is a YAML and what is a JSON. Okay.
Sir,
And
where
then,
do you write the JSON file?
simple, a simple file actually. So you will create a file. The extension of the file will be .yaml or YAML, and you will write a YAML format. That's it. Okay. Compose can understand that particular file. It understands YAMLs and JSON. Both it can understand. It's not that you have to install some tool and you need to write a YAML file. It's not like that. Okay. It is a simple file. You need to give a proper extension. You can see in the slide YML or YAML. Both are accepted actually. Okay. Yeah. Now what is Docker Swarm? Before Kubernetes came into picture, everybody used to use Docker Swarm for a containerization, like for what do you say, cluster. Okay. So does anyone know what is cluster? Forget about Docker and all. What is cluster? Why we call it as a cluster? There could be some specific reason, right? Does anyone know what is a cluster?
Group of individual nodes which when we group together it called a kind of a cluster
Yeah, simple.
where we can.
So when you are trying to manage multiple nodes through one particular platform is called as a cluster. Okay. So you are bringing all the individual nodes together and I'm managing those individual nodes from one particular node. That is called as a cluster. So that's the reason that manager node is called as manager, and all other nodes which you are trying to deploy your applications are called as worker nodes. Okay. You can see this particular slide. These are the manager nodes. For high availability, we have 3 manager nodes. Okay, and here are the worker nodes. Okay, on these worker nodes you are trying to deploy your applications. Okay, now this is called as a cluster, whether it is a standalone cluster or a high availability cluster. High availability in the sense you will have multiple manager nodes. If one of the manager node is down, you have another manager node to serve the data. Okay, that is called as high availability. If you have only one manager node and multiple worker nodes, that is called as a simple cluster. Okay, it is not a high availability, it is a standalone cluster. Okay, now Docker Swarm, before Kubernetes came into picture in the early stage, I don't know, when I started my career in my company were 2016 actually. That's where I heard about Kubernetes. Then I was trained on 1.3 actually version. That is a version where I started my Kubernetes career. Okay, so then I don't have these many features. Earlier, at that time, they have used a Docker Swarm only for cluster concept. Okay, to form your cluster, Docker cluster, we used to use a Docker Swarm. Okay, and it is so simple to create. It doesn't need additional tools. Once you install Docker on all the machines, how many machines you want to use in the cluster. On all the machines you need to install Docker. Once a Docker is installed, no other tools are needed. With the Docker tool itself, we can convert that into a Docker Swarm cluster. Okay, but whereas in Kubernetes, not only installed in Docker, we need to install Kubernetes tools as well. Okay, and it is a bit complex compared to your Docker Swarm to form your cluster actually. But once a cluster is formed, Kubernetes has so many features. Why? Because there are so many contributors to the Kubernetes. That's the reason so many new features are implemented in Kubernetes actually compared to Docker. Docker has
Do
less
we need any
contributors.
plugins then?
Yeah, we need some third-party plugins and all. For which you are talking about, Docker Swarm or Kubernetes?
For Kubernetes from Docker.
For Kubernetes, yeah, we need some plugins. Let's say for Core DNS, for DNS part, we are using Core DNS as a plugin. For networking, we are using Calico or WaveNet or any other networking for Kubernetes. Okay, we need some plugins. They are called it as add-ons, not as specifically plugins. It's like an add-on. It is not an inbuilt feature where you need to adopt from somewhere, some third-party tool. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Now, so Docker Swarm, that's the reason why Docker Swarm is not used in production environments. Why? Because it has less features compared to what Kubernetes is providing us right now. Okay, it has vast number of features actually, where everybody is looking for those kind of features in one platform. Okay, so that doesn't mean that you cannot use Docker Swarm. We can use it, but if you want those features, you cannot create in the Docker Swarm. You cannot run your applications in the Docker Swarm. So we will be concentrating on this particular tool as well, not 100%, but I will be covering all the concepts in Docker Swarm. But you, from your side, concentrate more on Docker Engine and Docker Compose. Okay, Docker Swarm, yes, 50%, that's fine. Docker Machine, 0%, not at all needed, actually. Okay, don't waste time on Docker Machine. Completely remove this particular tool. That's the reason I will also not teach this particular tool actually. It's a simple tool. You can just go through the official document and you can understand. No need a special training on this actually. So Docker Engine, Docker Compose, and Docker Swarm. Okay. In the Docker Engine, remember you have to understand the underlying concept. What is namespace? What is cgroup? How containers are created? How Docker is trying to create a container? If you don't understand this, this will be really tough to understand the containers concept. Okay, so that's the reason I'll be teaching you underlying concept of how this Docker engine is working actually. What is the working principles of Docker? Okay, so that we have to understand. I think we are getting a lot of messages, private messages. Okay, yeah, I understand. So share your contact number and email address to the management in the chat room so that they will get in touch with you. Because we will be creating a WhatsApp group for this entire course until the course is done, or even after the course is done also I will be there in that particular group. That group will never get deleted. Okay, so we can discuss our questions and answers over there. Instead of waiting for the next day class, right, we can discuss in the WhatsApp group itself. Okay, so that's the reason why we are creating a WhatsApp group. Okay, so to add you people to the WhatsApp group, we need your contact number and email addresses to share your links and all for the session. Yeah, so please try to share your contact number. You give it in private with the management, not to me. Send a private message to the Visual Path, not to me actually. Okay, so now this is the whole concept which you have to learn before entering into Kubernetes. Okay, so let me. So this is the GUI part. So in the Docker also we can manage the Docker resources from GUI. That is called as Port Trainer. Port Trainer is a tool where you can deploy on your Docker engine and you can manage that particular Docker engine from dashboard, GUI. Why we do like this is because for everyone I cannot give a CLI access, right? I cannot give a Linux operating system access, server access in order to log into them and create a container. I don't want to give them. For developers, I don't want to give an access to them. So as an administrator, only me, I need to have the access. So for other people to access, developers want to create some containers. They want to test it on our platform. So what I will do, I will deploy these kind of tools and I will create a proper role that particular user, I will create a username password and I will share it with him. What are the permissions I've given to that particular user? He can do only that particular task. If you want those kind of things, you need to install these kind of tools actually. Okay. Now
But
this is
it
the
will be
basic.
saved in our file name,
Yeah.
right, sir?
Sorry.
But it will be saved in our file name, right? We'll
Yeah.
be
See,
giving the
you
credentials,
can
but
install
the
on.
file name will be
We
ours.
can. You no need to install on the same Docker engine. You can install on your local system, and you can integrate your Docker to this particular port trainer. That can be done. Okay.
Okay. Can you please
You
share the
understand,
video
right? So
recording as well?
let's say I have a Docker engine. Let's say few other people here, 10 people are having the Docker engine. You want to manage all these 10 Docker engines and from one particular dashboard. That is nothing but you can install Port Trainer on your local system, and you can integrate your Docker engines to your dashboard. You can manage all the Docker host machines from the dashboard itself. No need to log in from your end as well. You understand, right? What I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Can you
Yeah,
please
it is a
share the video
centralized
recording as
managing
well?
tool actually. Sorry?
Hello.
Can you please share the video recording as well?
Yeah, management will do it actually. That's the reason we are asking the email addresses and all.
Hello.
Yeah.
Actually, in this Docker and Kubernetes session, only you will be covering the CLI part as well as also YML file. You have to write the YML file, how to create the container, or how to create the image, or
I
how to
hope I
create.
already told this. I'll be teaching this YAML and JSON format as well. Without knowing that, we cannot. I cannot explain actually.
In
Okay.
a real-time
People don't
scenario,
understand, right?
yeah, in a real-time scenario, no need, nobody using the CLI. CLI mainly used for testing purpose. Nobody using the
Only when you are
real-time
writing some
in.
CK exam or CKS exam, Kubernetes exams and all, you will be using the CLI. Apart from that, yes, we
Okay,
do. Sometimes we have to do the
but
CLI as well. Okay.
but in the real-time only for real-time project, only you are using the CLI for the testing purpose. My question is, whenever you will take the session in Docker and Kubernetes, you will be covering how to create the cluster, how to create the pod, or how to create the service. What are the services is
Everything,
available in the Docker or Kubernetes? You are
everything
using
I'll be
the Docker with the no, Docker. You are using the Docker with the AWS. Can you explain? Whenever you will take the session, you will be covering those parts. Docker with the AWS and Docker with the. Nowadays, most of the companies they are using the Terraform. They are writing the automation and they are doing the cluster or they are creating the services. Those parts you will be covering in the session. My question is.
So to answer your questions, as I promised or as I told you before, we are not only doing the CLI operations, we are also doing the orchestration and we are also doing the automation process. I told right, I'll be covering the Jenkins as well. Jenkins is
No,
what?
not
I want to do some CI/CD operations, right?
No. Most probably 90% companies they are doing the AWS through the console. But nowadays the
We are
company
not,
is
let's say
preferring
for
only
example, we are not using AWS, right?
but now there is no need to do the AWS console. Now they are using the Terraform. They are doing the automation process. Those parts will be
Okay,
covering.
Ashok,
I'm
just
looking
hold
for
on,
those parts.
Ashok, just hold on. So try to listen the syllabus, what I'm trying to say, then we can ask the questions, okay? Terraform and all, I already told I'll be covering in the syllabus, okay? Just hold on for some time. Just try to understand what I'm trying to say and then come up with your questions, okay? And listen to the concepts, what I'm trying to say carefully. I already told that I'll be using Jenkins, I'll be teaching about YAMLs, I'll be orchestrating everything. We are not going to use much of manual steps. We are orchestrating everything, we are automating the process, everything using Jenkins CI/CD. Everything I've told in the session itself. Okay.
No. Yeah,
So to answer
it,
your
that.
questions, I already covered it. AWS and all, I'll just show you how it works, but we are not going to concentrate more on AWS, any cloud tools actually. My way of teaching will be only on on-premises. On-premises in the sense, if you're working on product-based companies and all, they don't use any AWS or any clouds. They rely on open source tools. They completely do on bare metal servers. Okay. So then you have to be in a position how to handle those, right? Cloud is not that too tough. Okay. You just need to do a click. You need to know which option is needed and what is need to be enabled. Okay. If you don't know the concept of Docker, you don't know what need to be. If you don't know what are the features are available in Docker, You cannot do that in the AWS as well, or any cloud, GCP or Azure.
No,
Okay.
listen, one more thing I want to say. Actually, I know I have already read Docker and Kubernetes. I know very well, but I'm looking for how to create the cluster services through the AWS console, as well as also how to do the
Sorry, this is
automation.
not okay. This is not for especially for AWS. I think this is not the one which you are looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terraform also not possible. How to automate
Terraform I'll
the
be
cluster?
teaching. I told right. See, we will be covering Linux operating system, networking, Docker, each and every tool, Docker Engine, Docker Compose, Docker Swarm, Docker Machine, and then YAML and JSON, and then port in a dashboard, and then Kubernetes whole concepts, ingress, services, stateful set, daemon set, secrets and all, and then a dashboard for Kubernetes as well, and then this one Helm charts, and then Terraform. And after that, this syllabus is completed, we will be discussing on Calico networking for Kubernetes in depth, and then we'll be discussing about security related things. How you can justify that
Terraform,
your Kubernetes cluster and the Docker cluster
Terraform,
is secure.
Terraform, which part will be covering within the Kubernetes cluster? How to create the Kubernetes cluster or services pod or whatever the services available. Those part will be writing the through the Terraform automation. How to do that? That part will be covering.
So through the Terraform files or through the Terraform modules, you will be trying to orchestrate your process on the Kubernetes cluster, whether you try to create ingress, services or pods. I'll be showing you how to write a Terraform files or Terraform modules in order to create this particular thing, resource on the Kubernetes cluster. Yeah, those are the things which I'll be covering here.
But AWS part you will be not covering.
AWS, no. If you are looking for AWS, this is not the right course actually.
No,
Okay.
I'm not looking specifically AWS. Nowadays they are using the AWS
Let me tell you the real world. See, let me tell you. Just hold on. Okay. Let me tell you the real world. It doesn't mean that everybody is using AWS. It depends on company and company. Okay. If you are especially looking for AWS, this is not the right course. Okay. I'm telling you one thing actually. This is a knowledge which I'm trying to share with everyone. I'm teaching from past 2 years. Okay. So many people asked to teach on AWS or GCP and all. I'll tell you one reason why I'm not teaching in cloud, because if you try to learn on premises, just a second, let me hold on please. So when you try to when I try to teach on premises, right, when you know how to manage your on premises, means on bare metal servers, managing cloud, it's not that easy, that tough actually. It is so simple. Okay, so that's the reason I want to share my knowledge to people to be strong enough on premises, because if you see, every time you don't work on AWS, right, tomorrow if you are, when you are shifting your career, you might work on product based companies. Product based companies will give you some more knowledge, you are intended to that, and they will give you some much high salary. Obviously these are two major reasons why I go for product based, because I will get much exposure to the tools and the more salary I get than the service based. Right, when you're going there, they don't use AWS, these kind of things actually. They use their own premises cloud, or they use some their own on premises, or they will try to deploy everything on their own data center. So when you don't know how to manage your own bare metal servers, then you will be really tough. AWS clouds and all these are like clicks actually. It is a kind of a GUI. Okay, everybody can learn if you spend for half an hour after teaching the on premises. If you try to spend half an hour on that, it doesn't take much time to learn it actually. Okay, so that's the reason even so many people have requested me to teach on AWS and GCP in every batch. I never thought on that actually, because that doesn't give you any knowledge. It's I treat them as a low priority. Only for client purpose we learn it, but that doesn't give you any time, any exposure to what is happening in the underlying technology. That never give you that knowledge. So people will be the problem is, we will try to stick to only that particular GUI part. We will never try to learn the underlying concept, how this AWS is trying to create a containers. Okay, so that's the reason I don't want to fall everybody into that scenario. So that's the reason, even though the people are requested, if people don't join also, I'm not worried actually. I'm not saying now, though people requested me, I don't teach it actually. because that is not the way. I don't want to expose people to that particular, stick to that GUI. Okay, you have to be knowledge enough. If I give you a server, I told you to form a Kubernetes cluster, you have to be in that position. Okay, that is what I'm looking for. That's it. That is a straightforward answer from my end. Okay, if you are looking for anybody who are looking for cloud kind of training, I'm not the right person actually.
One more thing I would like to ask. In
Yeah.
product-based company, they are using only for CLI and YML file, or what they are using in product-based company?
Hi, Sudhir.
Which
I'm
tool you
sorry
have?
to interrupt. I think we are just deviating from the topic. So these kind of questions,
Yeah.
maybe we can
Please
take a
go ahead,
little bit,
Sudhir.
please.
That's what. Yeah, that's
Yes,
what.
Ashok.
Ashok, we'll do one thing. Once the syllabus is done, because other people are waiting from long time. Some people are working in US actually. So let's not disturb them. I'll take up your questions after this is done. Okay? Yes, Said, you were saying something?
Continue on your topic.
Sorry? Yeah, okay. So in Kubernetes, as you all know, we have a vast syllabus. So it is a YAML format, okay? I will just be teaching in Docker Compose itself. That topic will be covered there. After that, this is the architecture of Kubernetes. So Kubernetes, I will show you how to form a Kubernetes with high availability and standalone as well. Standalone in the sense one master and multiple worker nodes, or multiple master nodes and multiple worker nodes for high availability. So that will cover in product servers as well, okay, and the normal testing servers as well. Okay, so high availability we use it for production actually. Okay, and normal testing and all we use a single master and multiple worker nodes. Okay, so after this there are a lot of syllabus, so that I already, this is a dashboard how it looks. Okay, if you look at your my syllabus, if I scroll down, so this is the Kubernetes. Okay, I'll be teaching about what are the components we have, what is the deployment, where to deploy your Kubernetes, what are the tools we have. In our syllabus, we will be using Kubedium. Okay, Kubedium is a tool which I will be using it in order to form the Kubernetes cluster on the local machine. Can everybody go on mute? Sorry. Syed. Okay, I muted.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you cover with the project as well, real-time project?
Yeah. See, that's what I told, right? It's not like a real-time project. Whatever the project, let's say I will try to automate the process. So in the thing, right, in the real-time world or whatever it is, I will tell you, Jenkins will be used for CI/CD operations or most of the cases, 90% like Jenkins or GitLab or anything. Okay, what they will try
And
to do is nothing but.
Sir,
Sorry?
during that time, the Docker and Kubernetes will be having any license to get the project as well, to teach the project,
No
or else it's
license. It's
a
an open
freeware.
source. It's a free. No need to have any license. No. It's a free of
Few
cost. Yes, you have
companies,
to take your own operating system and you need to deploy your applications. That's it.
okay, few companies will be taking with a license one, right?
Kubernetes doesn't have any license. It's open source. Docker is a licensed one. Yeah, I agree with that. We have community edition, enterprise edition, right? Enterprise edition is a licensed one, but Kubernetes doesn't have any license. No, it's an open source tool till now.
Okay, can we do the CI/CD project with Kubernetes and Docker as well?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So CI/CD project, I will be showing you that could be a real-time task for you when you're trying to crack the interview as well. Because nowadays they're giving you some task, they will give you some 4 days or 5 days, they will ask you to complete the task. Okay, you have to be in a position to complete that particular task. Okay, that is a knowledge where I'm trying to share. Okay, so the CI/CD projects I will be showing you in the Docker level and the Kubernetes level as well. Okay, how to do it with the complete CI/CD pipeline, building the image, deploying that using that image, deploying that particular application on the container Kubernetes as well as Docker as well. Okay, completely automation. No need, there should not be any manual interruption. Okay, that is the whole goal of this particular project. Okay, when I do some changes and I push it to my repository, automatically CI/CD pipeline has to trigger and it has to deploy the application on my Kubernetes cluster. Okay, that is the goal of my project. Okay, so for that we have CI/CD tool, we have open source tools as well which we can use it. So all the topics I will be covering. So I'll be training you guys for CK exam as well as CKS exam as well, security specialist. Okay, whichever exam you want, you can just prepare for that. I'll be training in that as well in that particular course, this particular course actually. Okay, in the CK exam, I'll be covering all the security related things. Okay, for CKA, in order to write a CKS exam, CKA is mandatory. Okay, so the basic certification is CKA. So everybody has to write a CKA exam. That will add some weightage to your resume. That's it. Okay, that is not too tough. I'll give you the questions, how to answer it, and all I will tell you. Okay, no need to worry about too much about certification actually. Okay.
Okay.
So these are the topics you can go through.
Hello. This is
Sorry.
one question I have earlier here.
Yeah. Said,
Yeah.
right? Yes, Said.
What will be the timings of daily?
That I will discuss. Yeah. Give me some time. Okay.
Okay.
So this is the syllabus which I'm going to discuss. What is pod, deployment, replica set? What are the things I'm going to cover in that particular topic? Okay. So these are called as object. Some people will call it as resource, but in order to deploy an application on my Kubernetes, these are the topics which you need to learn: pod, replication controller, replica set, deployment, daemon set, and stateful set. These are the different ways to deploy your application on your Kubernetes. Okay. What is advantage? What is the difference between these five, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the 6 ways you have in order to deploy your application on your Kubernetes cluster. What are the difference between these 6 methods in order to deploy your application and all? What are the advantage? Which one we have to use when? Okay, so everything we will be discussing in the course. Okay, and we have to discuss what is volumes. What are the different types of volumes that are supported in Kubernetes? We can use AKS volume, Azure. We can use Azure disk actually. We can use AWS disk EBS. Okay, we can use Google disk. Okay, so we have so many things that can be integrated to your Kubernetes. Okay, then we have persistent volume claim, storage classes. This is related to PVC concept. Okay, and then we will be discussing about services, secrets and config maps, ingress. Okay, ingress with certificates. Okay, secure communication as well, horizontal pod auto scaling, scheduling and probes. Okay, jobs and cron jobs, Calico networking, authentication and authorization, dashboard deployment, task. These are the tasks which I will give you when we come across the course. Okay, apart from this, I'll be talking about security related things in the Kubernetes, and then we have network policy, pod security policy. Pod security policy, actually that concept is getting deprecated, but anyway I will be teaching that PSP, but don't concentrate too much on that. They are trying to implement some alternative to that particular thing. I think it is under beta version. They are trying to develop it. It is not full-fledgedly developed, but they are trying to develop it. Okay, so we will concentrate on pod security policy as of now. Okay, I don't have enough time to teach what is that PSP and all, but yeah. And then we will be coming to Helm charts. Helm is a tool where when you want to deploy some large applications on your Kubernetes cluster, we cannot maintain this individual YAML files, right? I don't know which YAML file belongs to which application. That will get confused for me. So instead of that, we can create a charts. What the charts will have in Helm, that particular concept is called as chart. Chart in the sense, let's say I want to deploy Nginx chart. For Nginx to deploy whatever the YAML files are needed, those YAML files will be bundled as a chart. That chart will be deployed into your Kubernetes cluster using a tool called Helm. That's the reason these are called as Helm charts. Okay, so you have to understand what is manifest and what is chart, what is the difference between them, and then I will be teaching about Helm chart. This is really useful for you when you're working on Kubernetes. This tool you have to learn. Okay, it is really a weightage for your resume. Okay, so believe me, when you have some knowledge on Helm chart, especially for Kubernetes, you'll be having some weightage to your resume. Okay, I'll be teaching that, and I will show you how this will be really useful for some particular automation as well. When you're trying to do some deployment automation, this particular tool also will be handy for us to do this particular task. Okay, when you want to upgrade your Kubernetes cluster, sorry, not Kubernetes cluster, your applications on your Kubernetes cluster and all, these are the tools which we use it for simplifying our job. Okay, in CI/CD process. And then Terraform. So Terraform is an infrastructure as a code tool actually. Can someone tell me what is infrastructure as a code tools? Any other tools that you know? Infrastructure as a code. By the way, this
Like
is the
service,
last topic for our
Ansible.
syllabus. Sorry?
like service now.
Sorry, come again. Your voice is breaking actually.
Like service now.
Which service?
Ansible.
Now service.
Ansible.
Ansible, yeah, true. Any other tools? Puppet, Ceph. Okay, so these are the infrastructure as a code. But Ansible is not fully concentrated on infrastructure as a code. It is much concentrated on configuration and management. That's the reason Puppet, Ceph, Ansible, these are called as configuration and management tool. What is a configuration and management? Configuration and management in the sense, once the infrastructure has been built, if you want to modify some file, or if you want to install some package, or if you want to manage some particular service on that particular node, we use Ansible. Okay, but let's say on AWS I want to launch some particular instance, or Azure I want to launch some instance, or in Kubernetes I want to launch some particular, I want to deploy some application using some deployment or daemon set or something. I want to do that. Then Ansible can be used, but instead of Ansible, Terraform is much designed for infrastructure as a code. Okay, so you are trying to deploy, you are trying to create your infrastructure using a code. That particular code is called as Terraform, is having its own way of writing the code, that is called as HashiCorp language. So we use that particular HashiCorp language in order to create your infrastructure on that particular platforms, whether it is Ansible, or sorry, whether it is AWS, whether it is Azure, or whether it is GCP, or whether it is Kubernetes or Docker. We try to use this particular tool in order to orchestrate our process. Okay, build our infrastructure using this Terraform tool. Okay, it is much designed for this infrastructure as a code tool. Okay, so that's the reason we are trying to teach Terraform as well. Apart from this, as I told you, we'll be discussing more on Calico networking. This particular in-depth concept is needed because if you don't understand networking on Kubernetes, it will be really tough for us to troubleshoot. Okay, troubleshooting is really important for administrators. Okay, for developers that's fine, for developers and testers. But when you're working as an administrator, let's say you are the owner for your Kubernetes cluster, so then you don't know how to troubleshoot. That will be really tough for us, right? So I'll be teaching about how to go in depth on this particular Calico networking, and then security. That is a new topic which I added in the syllabus, but you don't see here. Security related Docker containers. Let's say I have some vulnerabilities in my image. Okay, I need to scan my image and see what are the vulnerabilities I have. Okay, so that is a security related thing, right? That is a part of security team. So when you are trying to do some security checks on your cluster, what are the tools you need to use, how to use it? Okay, so these are also topics which I'm going to cover that will help you for CKS exam. Okay, so we have totally two types of exams, actually three certifications we have in Kubernetes. Let me tell you that one is CKA. We have CKA, which is a basic certification, and then we have CKAD. It is Certified Kubernetes Administration is the first one, Certified Kubernetes Application Development, and Certified Kubernetes Security Specialist. These are the three certifications which we have. Okay, so I'm holding this particular certificate CK exam. I am having CKAS exam certification as well. Okay, so I'll be training you on CKA and CKS. Okay, what are the questions that will come into the exam? Okay, so this is the whole syllabus, and the person, so that's what I'm saying. Who want to concentrate more on in-depth concept, this is the right course. Actually I'll be teaching from scratch, and everything I will be showing you from scratch. Okay, like on-premises setup.
Will you be covering service mesh also? I didn't see.
Service mesh, no, that is has a drawback, so we are not using a service mesh. So I'm not teaching service mesh. That I skipped actually. Yeah, to be frank, Istio, I'm not using any training on that particular Istio. Except this, all the topics will be covered.
Just a question: is it an overkill to use Istio, or is it really adding a benefit to when you define?
See, Istio is something where to actually to to understand additional mesh we are adding, right, between the services. So when you add this kind of tools, right, that will add a latency between your application communication. Okay, let's say there is an application running in one container that is flowing through one particular service, and that will contact to another service. In between, you will have a service mesh. Okay, so the service mesh will track the things what you are trying to send, and that will store in the Istio, right? So this will have some delay in communication actually. So that's the reason it is not recommended to use when you're trying to deploy some large applications. It is not recommended to use this kind of service mesh and a service mesh in between your services actually. Okay,
Okay.
that is not recommended. So that's the reason I kept that particular topic out of the syllabus. Yeah. Any other questions, please? That's the syllabus. So when it will start and all, that management will talk about it. Course fee, when it will start and all, management will talk about it. Anything technical discussion. So as I told you, it will take 45 days, excluding Saturday, Sunday, and days. So dedicatedly allocate two months for us to concentrate to complete this particular syllabus. I will be taking 2 months to complete, including Saturdays and Sundays. Okay, including Saturday, Sundays, and Saturday, Sunday will be holiday. Okay, there will be no session. Only on weekdays we have a session. Saturday, Sundays everybody can practice because everybody is working, right? Saturday, Sunday is the only day which we spend some time with the family and we get some time to practice. So let's not disturb that. Okay.
So how long
So
do you
the
have
next
access to the environment?
Sorry.
So how long you'll have access to the test environment where you can practice?
1 year. 1 year.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So daily 1 hour. So 10 minutes we'll have some QA session if we have, apart from what we have discussed in WhatsApp group. So we'll be creating a WhatsApp group. Every day we'll have some discussions. For every topic I will give you some task. So I will explain what need to be done. So you have to do it by weekend. If you're not able to do it, I will be sharing how to do it actually. Okay, I'll give you some hints and all. Okay, so this is how I'll be training on this Docker and Kubernetes. So with the real-time scenarios. Okay, not the real-time projects, real-time scenarios. Okay, with the CI/CD pipeline and CI/CD automation.
Sudhir, I have one small question here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what is the main difference between this Kubernetes and Red Hat OpenShift?
See, Red Hat OpenShift is something where Kubernetes is an open source tool, right? They are using it, and top of that, they are creating their own authentication mechanism, their own repository to download. You know about Red Hat, right? Red Hat use their own satellite repository to download the packages and all. So this OpenShift is something where underlying it's Kubernetes only, but they are using a different mechanism to interact to that Kubernetes, because additionally they are providing some features like they use their own repository to store the images. Okay, they don't rely on another repository. OpenShift is providing its own repository to store the images and download the images to deploy your application, and they are providing their own authentication mechanism. Okay, when you are doing on premises, you have to integrate some third-party tools to have this thing to be done. Okay, this is how it is. That's a major difference. Apart from that, whatever the YAML files you write, whether it is Azure, whether it is OpenShift, or whether it is a Google Cloud Kubernetes, or whether it is Azure Kubernetes or AWS Kubernetes, OpenShift, or your on-premises Kubernetes, everybody has to write the same YAML file. Okay.
Okay.
How you interact with the Kubernetes, that cluster will be different on different platforms. That's it. It's not a rocket science actually. Yeah, any other questions, please? In some topics, I think I went in hurry because of the time constraint. Actually, it's almost 1 hour past, 1.5 hours past actually. So yeah, so this is how I teach on-premises setups. Everything is on-premises, which means that if I give a mission to you, what you do, if I want to say Docker, you have to install Docker, you have to install Kubernetes. In the sense, you have to be in a position to install Kubernetes, and you have to be in a position to manage it. Okay, in exam also they don't use any AWS or Azure. You have to do it on premises only. Okay, that's the whole intention actually. Yes, Ashok, if no one has any questions, so Ashok, you can ask your questions now.
Yeah, in a product based company, as you said, Yeah, as you
Not a
said,
product based, even service
no,
based companies also, they are trying to build their own cloud and they want to integrate their Kubernetes on premises to the cloud.
no, as you said, in product-based company, they are not using the cloud. But how they are using the Linux by using the CLI command, they are getting the services for.
See, everybody, when you're working with Kubernetes, we have to use YAML files. We use much CLI operations, right? Everything is automated.
Yeah, actually, Sudhir, what I'm looking, actually, I'm working in Atos India Private Limited, but my current company, they are using the Kubernetes by using the AWS console. Last
Yeah, I understand.
1 year before, last 1 year before they used to AWS console, and now they are using
Console
the
in the sense
Terraform.
what? Okay, what you understood, what is console?
Console, through the console you can create the cluster, through console you can create the services, pods,
No,
whatever
means
you
that is a
can.
CLI. See,
No,
AWS
no,
has.
through the AWS console.
Okay.
Through AWS. Now they are using the Terraform automation. Instead of doing frequently changing the console, they are doing the automation process using the Terraform.
Understand, I understand. Just hold on. Just hold on. So earlier you are trying to use a dashboard. From the dashboard, how I am using a GCP, right? So you used to manage your Kubernetes cluster or your AWS services entirely from this particular console, right?
Yeah.
Now
Now
your team has adopted. I understand. So now
Yeah,
your team has adopted Terraform. So using Terraform, they are trying to write their own modules in order to interact with this AWS and try to create an instance or anything for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why
Then
I don't know. That's why I thought CLI command I know very well. I worked in last 7-8 months, but they're looking for this one. I thought I will be joining this course and I will be getting the benefit. That's why I'm asking for specific.
if you
for
want
that.
only Terraform, okay, if you want only the Terraform,
Yeah, Terraform. I'm not Terraform with the Kubernetes. How to manage whatever the functionality are having in the Kubernetes that I can do the through Terraform automation. I can do all the process.
that's what I'm saying. So whatever the Terraform tool I'll be discussing, I'll be showing you how to spin up your infrastructure on Kubernetes using Terraform by writing a Terraform files and by writing the modules as well. Same thing you need to apply in your organization. That's it for AWS.
Okay.
See, you want to understand how to manage Terraform, whether it is AWS or Kubernetes, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Now
how.
you have
That's what I'm saying.
now they are doing the whatever the AWS console, through the console we are doing the Kubernetes application deployment or whatever functionality we are doing. Those part they are doing the automation process.
I understand, Ashok. What you're trying to say is I understand. What I'm saying, in the syllabus we covered Terraform as well. Terraform is like it will try to. I will be using Kubernetes provider. You can, in your case, they are using AWS provider. Okay. Instead of going manually and creating this particular resource one by one, some people might forget, right, to enable some parameters. Using Terraform, what happened? They can just modify the name and they can create. They need, no need to forget about what parameters need to be enabled. That will be taken care by your Terraform itself. So that Terraform basic concepts of writing the Terraform files and writing the modules I'll be teaching. If you want to join, you can join. If you want only Terraform with AWS or something, this is not the right course. Okay. You can talk to the management if they have any other course only related to Terraform and AWS in depth. You can go for with them. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, this Terraform is especially for Kubernetes. Okay. Wherever you run your Kubernetes, whether it is AWS, AKS, or you can see in Google also we have this Kubernetes. Okay, Kubernetes engine. If you want to launch your application on this Kubernetes engine as well, we can use that Terraform. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. This is all I can say. It's up to you.
Yeah.
You have to take the decision. Yes, I.
Hi, Sudhir. Yeah, like this Kubernetes will be on like Google Cloud, right? Like a Kubernetes in GKE will be covering.
No. So what I'm saying is like I will not touch any Kubernetes services in any cloud. Okay. So what I'm saying, like some people may not have resources on this particular a virtual machine, right? See, let's say some people may have laptop with only 4 GB of RAM and 1 core CPU. For them, they should not think about purchasing a new laptop, right? And they need to practice on daily basis. For them, what I'm saying is like try to create a GCP account. There they are providing you some 22,000 rupees. Until that is done, you can use this particular account, okay, to practice. So here also we are creating virtual machines actually, and we are trying to install Docker or Kubernetes for our practice. Okay.
Okay.
That is
Like
our
any
intention
load
actually.
balancing techniques in Compute Engine.
I'm not using any load balancer. No. Why is needed? I'll just open in the browser and I'll just show you how to practice it. That's it. I'll show you how to create this account and all. Okay.
Yeah.
See, we are not using this Kubernetes engine because that is not our intention, right? We don't want to use this because we don't get any knowledge. That's a problem actually. Once you have some knowledge on Kubernetes, managing that particular Kubernetes on cloud, it's so easy. You know what is pod, you know what is cluster, you know what is workload, you know what is ingress now, you know what is service. Okay, everything you can manage from here. Only just is like clicks. That's it. Okay. You need to know where is
Got
that
it. By
option.
knowing all those things, by knowing all these things, we can manage like a Kubernetes engines.
Anywhere actually. That's a promise which I can give. Yeah. That's a strong right. If you want to survive in IT industry for longer period, on-premises setup from scratch is a real time experience that you get or real time knowledge that you get to survive in the IT industry for longer period. Everybody has knowledge on AWS, but they don't have what is happening in the background. Okay, how it is getting implemented. Okay, now okay, I will train in Kubernetes with this particular service. Okay, now if you don't know what is happening in the background, that will be really tough, a challenge for us actually. Okay, to troubleshoot as well. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Any
Actually,
other
I'm looking
questions,
for
please?
like actually I'm looking for like this type of like Kubernetes GCP with Jenkins like CI/CDs. Yeah, it will be helpful.
Jenkins and AVA, I will be covering it. Only if you are using GCP, if you want to use it, it is a simple concept. Once you learn Kubernetes, right, you can just go here,
Yes.
you will be creating a cluster, you will be asking whether you want a standard or autopilot, and you will be selecting it, let's say configure, and it will ask you what Kubernetes version you want to use, and you will select how many nodes you want. Once you click on OK, it will create a Kubernetes cluster for you. You can see here. If you want 1.20.7, you will select it and you will try to create it. That's it. That doesn't give you any knowledge, right? Once it is done, whatever we do from on premises, it's the same. You will try to deploy some pod, you will deploy some application and all, you will write a YAML files, everything is same. How we are creating a cluster is a different. Okay, from platform to platform. Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Got it. Thanks.
Hope you understood. Okay. Thank you for joining the demo. And when it will start and all, management will talk to you. It will be sooner. Okay. And then we can join in that particular session. Okay. Thank you.